Let's make another randomly generated piece of jewelry. Today's numbers are drawer 2, impression die 19. Here is the die we've chosen. This one has a bunch of designs for me to choose from. Initially, I'm drawn to this one, but I'm going to see if I can combine a couple of these. The first thing I do is use my hydraulic press to press this sort of rope swoop trio component and use my jeweler's saw to cut it out after I get all the detail. I clean up all of the edges using different sanding discs and set those aside while I make a bezel for a stone. The stone I've chosen has these really nice irregular stripes, and I wanted to mimic that with the bezel. I tightly wrap the bezel wire around the stone and then mark where I will need to trim the long end before soldering the ends together. After it's soldered, I make a few adjustments to ensure that the bezel wall fits the stone, and then I trace the bezel onto what will be the back plate. I cut out each of those shapes, leaving a little extra, and then flatten the bottom end of the bezel so that it will sit flat on the back plate for when I solder it. After I clean the piece, I trace an inner shape on the inside of the bezel. I'm going to remove this teardrop shape, but I want an even border around the edge. I use my jeweler's saw to do that, and then I'm using just a pair of shears to trim around the outside before cleaning up the edges with different sanding discs. I want the fit of the stamped component to fit the curve of the bezel perfectly, so I use a variety of different sanding tools. I've chose this one because it has a similar circumference so that I can solder the stamped component to the bezel with no gaps. I solder a small ring to the narrow end of each piece, finish cleaning it up, and then cover the inside walls with Sharpie. This allows me to mark a nice shiny silver line so I'll know where I will need to lower the bezel so that it will fit the stone. I do all my finishing steps and then it is time to set the stone. I'm working from opposite sides, top, bottom, left, right, until the wall is evenly pressed over the stone. Assign my piece, and here are the finished earrings. You can see how the texture I added to the bezel really works with the stone pattern. And you remember in the intro where I said I wanted to combine two stampings? Well, the proportions for the two components that I wanted to use didn't work together with the stone, so I decided to make a bonus pair of earrings. I pressed this tiny component and paired it with a back plate that was textured with metal from a previous project and set a rock crystal cabochon on top. The crystal creates sort of a magnifying effect of the texture that I left inside the bezel, and I think this is just a really fun way to highlight patterned metal without a colored stone. And I forgot to mention, the stones in these earrings are blue and gold river jasper. They're absolutely beautiful, and they are a little bit more blue near the bottom than they appear in the photos. If you want to play along, I need you to leave me 2 numbers in the comments, number 1 through 8 to determine which drawer I'll choose, and number 1 through 85 to determine which die from that drawer I'll pick. Thank you all so much, and I will see you in the next video.